right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first virtually recorded episode of our Grade Level Guru podcast. As always, I am Michelle. I am joined with my co-host Amanda, and we have our very first guest today. It's so exciting. And I'm going to turn it over and let her introduce herself and tell us all about a little bit about like your journey through the career in education. Who are you and what got you to this point?
Hi, everybody. My name is Janine. I have been in education for just shy of 20 years. I've worked as a classroom teacher, a reading specialist, and I have always worked, and I'm a literacy coach, and I'm also dabbling in independent consulting for schools and for teachers. And I have always worked in high needs Title I schools, and I also grew up in a high needs Title I school. So my passion has always laid in really helping close the opportunity gap for students that are historically marginalized or furthest away from justice or families that just need a little bit more support because we can grow these students, and that's really where all my fun comes in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So, Janine, given your background, particularly as a reading specialist, and one of the big reasons why we are so excited to have you on here today is we've really been talking a lot about how kids learn how to read and how absolutely critical early literacy is. So, we're going to have everyone imagine you're a parent, you're watching your child learn to read. Can you tell us, like, what is an example of a mistake that's an appropriate mistake? It's a developmental appropriate mistake. And what's an example of a mistake that could be a red flag or signify that there is a learning gap?
Something to just consider right off the bat is that early literacy starts from the womb. And these are conversations that we have in the schools all the time. We have pre K in my school, students enter at 4 years old. And we're noticing that these students already come in with a gap in learning, right? And there's no expectation that 4-year-olds can read, can write, can identify letters yet, letter sounds. It wouldn't be appropriate to have these high expectations on them. What we do expect is that students can have oral language conversations, play with sounds, identify rhymes, things of that nature. But really, early literacy starts from birth, and it's the word that students are being exposed to at home from their families, access to books. Can they handle books physically left to right? Do they know the cover of the book? And also just being able to sit down and enjoy a story with anybody. That's all literacy in the early stages. So I've spoken to so many parents who say, my child needs a tutor. I say, "Why?" They can't write their name, they're 4, and I'm like, "Okay, well, it's really not a big expectation that they know all of the letters yet or that they're forming the letters perfectly yet." So to look for these red flags in terms of reading at 4, 5 years old, we really want students being able to answer rich questions, think about the characters in a book, or, playing with sounds, that's strong. I'm gonna drop a jargon word, phonemic awareness, where really it's just, can they hear sounds, right? So if you're a family at home and you're thinking, I say bat, what rhymes with bat? Bat and that. Do they rhyme? And just playing those little games with the kids like that. Nothing long, nothing crazy, just a few minutes a day.
Yeah. You mentioned something that makes me think of a literacy skill that a lot of people wouldn't realize like is actually one of the earliest literacy skills, and that's like just handling a book. That like
Mhm.
when you give a book to a kid, the kid knows, "Oh, I should go give this to an adult because that adult is going to read it to me." But
Right.
if you hand a book to a kid and the kid's like, "What's this?" then like that kid doesn't know what a book is. And like that is a red flag that the kid doesn't know what a book is. The kid doesn't know that, oh, this is for sitting down and turning the pages and reading, and an adult does that with me. So I think when you mentioned that, that's something that I had learned that was surprising to me, that that's a red flag. If you hand a book to a 2 or 3-year-old and they don't know what to do with it, that's book awareness. Like they literally don't know what you just handed them. They don't know what it's for.
Right. Right. We call that concepts of print. And even I have a 4-year-old now, and she says, Mommy, I can't read the pages. And I say, but you can tell me the pages. And just being able to, like you said, handle that book from left to
Mhm.
right and turn the pages. And even if she's just identifying the pictures, I tell her to tell me the story through the pictures. So even if it's not what the book's about, she's making that ability to look at the pictures and use her own oral language to relay a message.
Parent might not realize, like, that's building narrative sense.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
a kid doesn't have that, like I taught high school for 20 years, but like I know kids who didn't have narrative sense because
Mhm.
whenever you tell them to write a narrative essay, it's this they connect every sentence with and then and then because they don't get narrative structure. So
Yeah,
I think those are interesting, like green flags and red flags that, like you don't know what you don't know, but like when you
right.
realize it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's fascinating and really important.
Mhm. I guess if we're really looking for red flags for those early foundational stages is, can the student hold on to a piece of information, even if it's as low level as what color was the character's shirt or why did the character feel that way? So asking a realm of questions to see can they hold on to information? Can they talk about information? And then if you needed a step two to that, it could be can your child can you say, take this book and put it on the table? Okay, take this book, put it on the table, and get me the remote, right? Like one step and two-step direction.
Yeah.
So if you're unsure about that literacy, start thinking about can they orally listen and hold on to oral directions?
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
I think when I taught 5th grade, this is one of the things I realized the most was I would have kids who, like, from day to day did not hold on to what we did. So they would have it, I'm like, "Yes, I did it." Like, "I'm amazing. Look at these young people learning and engaging with science, with social studies, with whatever we're reading." And then the next day, it would be like that day didn't even happen.
Mhm.
Like, I'm starting with blank slates again,
Yeah.
and it was just remarkable. So I can see where that ability to hold on to information is so foundational because that's where it's gonna end up.
Yeah,
And this is
and
the
with a little
important
kid, it could be as simple as asking, like, "Do you remember where Bunny hid?"
exactly. Yeah.
And
And this is
it's
the
that simple to
importance
check.
This is the importance with the early literacy screeners that so many states are mandating now because built
Mhm.
into many of the the early literacy screeners is an optional RAN. Some schools do it as a further diagnostic, and that's rapid automatic naming, and that's testing the working memory right at 5 years old. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I think we've gotten into this a little bit, but I'd love to hear, quick and broad, what's happening when a kid learns to read?
What's happening when a kid learns to read? Really want to get into the brain science here, right? Research is showing now, the pendulum swings to the left and the pendulum swings to the right. And every 5 years, we teach literacy in a different way. But really, what the brain is showing us now is that everything needs to be integrated and reciprocal approaches. Because honestly, my favorite quote is when the brain wires together, it fires together, something along those lines. But seeing print, hearing sounds, integrating it all the time. We were in this area of phonemic awareness is completely isolated from print, but now we're understanding that students need to hear sounds, and we also need to hear sounds tied embedded with letters, right? So seeing that print, hearing speech, writing speech. So really it's about working those nerves. It's just like basketball practice. You're never going to get better at basketball if you don't practice. And the same is true for literacy. There's just so many areas of literacy, but really students getting so much opportunities to recognize sounds. We're not teaching letters right now, right away. We're really focusing on the sounds for early literacy first and are they ability to play with it. And then the natural systematic progression. I think as educators, we've spent a lot of time trying to write our own curriculum, but we're not researchers, right? And like trusting the process of the systematic instruction. And then as families, how do we support that? And the best way really that we can support that is just reinforcing whatever the teacher is doing, and trusting the teachers. As a parent, I get home, these are the books that we're reading this week. I go and I either check those books out of the library, or I watch them on YouTube with my kids if I don't own them, just to reinforce that oral language, oral language, oral language all the time.
When I
Yeah.
was trying to learn more about this, because again, like I have a big high school background, but like I find all of this like super fascinating. I read that our brains are not wired
Hmm.
to read. We're wired to recognize sounds. Like our brains are literally wired to speak. You do not have to teach a kid to speak. They will actually do that. We're wired for that. It's going to happen. But reading is completely artificial and made up. And we've made up these shapes that mean sounds. And we've put these sounds together that mean words that have meaning in the outside world. And a kid is putting all that together. And if you think about, that's nuts. That is like, I'm just trying to, I Googled it. I think there's like 44 sounds in the English language, something like that. And like how many different phonemes, like how many different letter combinations? I think it's something like 32. Anyway, it's a ridiculous amount of information that a kid has to memorize to simply be able to read a word. And then they have to know what that word means.
Hmm. And then they
Like,
have to spell it,
and then they have
and
to
they have to
spell it.
spell it correctly,
You
right?
have to spell it correctly, which
Yeah.
spelling's been changing for thousands of years, so good luck with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like wild to think about like what you're actually doing. Like you are memorizing the shapes of letters. You're memorizing 52 different shapes. And then you are memorizing like 44 different letters 44 different sounds that go with those shapes. And then you're stringing it all together and trying to make meaning of it. It's
Hmm.
it's so much.
And that's exactly what you're saying. The brain, like, you have to fire those neurons together, and the only way to do that is to build that muscle memory. Students need access to it every day in school, and then the best way to support at home is to really align with what the school is doing. If you at home are doing a completely different approach than the teachers are doing at school, now the student might be confused. So really just finding a way to bridge that gap, even if it's as simple as this is the poster that we use in school, so I'm going to use it at home to recognize my letter sounds, or just using the same words. However, you shouldn't be doing too much of the heavy lifting at home to teach reading, and
But it
just kind
helps
of
to know
trusting
what's
that
going
process.
on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. But not reinventing the wheel, like getting that support from the family saying, from the teachers, what is the best way that I can support at home?